I'm not against that. Honestly, I would say for each individual, talk to your doctor and figure out what works best for you. Over a decade ago, I heard about this male equivalent of the pill. This was in high school legal studies class. It came up with other classmates or something in there, and I think it got shelved at some point for whatever reason. But it makes me wonder, there's always been a way for there's always been a male equivalent of the pill that's quick, a little painful, but eventually it only has a 0.15% chance of leading to a pregnancy. I'm talking about vasectomies. Because this article caught my attention and made me think of that, and I thought we'd take a look at it, go over it, and see what Anna Gibbs has to say about men are showing more and more interest in long-term birth control. Before we get started, be sure to give this video a like. Comment your thoughts on men and women sharing the burden of birth control, or whether you think it should be on the burden should be on whoever wants to maintain control, or whether it should be on every individual, man or woman, to figure out their best solution. Give this video a like and subscribe for daily videos. Without further ado, let's see why Anna Gibbs captioned that article. Finally! Of all the sexually active women I know who use long-term contraception, nearly every single one of them has a horror story. I have multiple friends who have become deeply depressed while on the birth control pill. Some get debilitating headaches or nausea or deal with emotionally numbness side effects that can be frustratingly difficult to even get straight answers about. My friends with IUDs describe their insertion procedures with a faraway look in their eyes, like they've seen war. I myself have cried on the table as two gynecologists wrestled to open my cervix for 20 minutes. I've never experienced so much physical pain in my life. I was offered an ibuprofen. It was only a few weeks ago that new guidelines were issued that finally asked doctors to take this pain seriously. Was that for an IUD? Or sounds more like, I'm gonna guess it was an IUD, because a hysterectomy is far less likely to have occurred. Because Tim Pool said something about how most doctors do not want to be held liable if she has regrets. But that sounds like a really brutal procedure. Anyway, the onus for birth control has long fallen on women, who have more than a dozen contraceptive options to choose between, but basically always have some kind of downside. Men, meanwhile, continue to be limited to two options: wear a condom or get a vasectomy. Three if you count pulling out. The idea of developing more male contraceptive methods has been tossed around for decades. Hey, like the one I mentioned at the start of this video that just faded into the background or got shelved for whatever reason, or but getting these methods approved is challenging because, unlike for women, where birth control side effects are safer than the health risks that come with a pregnancy, a man would be taking on side effects without reducing any of his own health risks. When the FDA decides to approve a rejected drug, they consider the risks and benefits to the individual taking the drug. So either a new male contraceptive needs to have no side effects. Can we work on that for women too, please? Or there needs to be a new framework altogether that a person would willingly take on their own health risks to reduce a partner's health risks. I'm not against that. Honestly, I would say for each individual, talk to your doctor and figure out what works best for you. If you're willing to accept the risk of the side effects for your benefit, by all means, you do what you and your doctor figure out. Recent research shows that it's an idea that men are increasingly open to. Last year, a multi country study asked more than 15,000 sexually active heterosexual cisgender males about their interest and willingness to use a novel form of birth control, such as a pill, gel, or injection, a couple of which are possibly 5 to 10 years out from being available. The findings showed a high interest across the board. The study was funded by the Male Contraceptive Initiative, so perhaps it makes sense that the results were so rosy. In the US, 78% of men said they'd be willing to try a new male contraceptive, and that was one of the lowest numbers. In Vietnam, 98% of men were open to it. Many men were willing to try it within the first year of availability, including over three-quarters of survey respondents in Nigeria and Bangladesh. Well, the lowest is still the majority. 78%, it's a solid number. Again, I would just argue to each their own on their decision of if and when they want to have kids. Of course, this doesn't mean that these men would definitely go on to use birth control. It's one thing to be open to it, and a very other one to actually accept the inconvenience, risks, costs, and discomfort associated with taking a new medication. Just like in that episode of Modern Family where Phil chickened out of the vasectomy he was originally going to get after Gloria got pregnant at the end of season 3. Spoiler alert for a episode that aired about 13 years ago now. But the bourgeoising abortion restrictions in the US have shed some light on why men might desire their own new contraceptive methods. The survey found that, before the Dobbs decision, 39% of American men would be willing to try a new contraceptive in its first year of availability. The year after, that number rose to 49%. That makes sense. Men might not have to deal with the health risks of pregnancy, but they are on the hook, at the very least financially, for a baby. Actually, this actually reminds me of a hilarious billboard I saw down in Florida when I went there in 2013. This was in the Tampa area. It said, Child support costs $500 a month. A vasectomy costs $500 once. I really hope that's the cost of it without insurance. I've been researching my insurance's vasectomy coverage out of curiosity. But yeah, I'd say if you do not want to have kids, the burden is on you to figure out how to do that. From the research I did, vasectomies have a 99.85% effectiveness rate, meaning there's a 0.15% chance there's a reconnection of something. I'm not a doctor, so don't take me seriously on this. Talk to your doctor about this, not me. We're seeing that increased interest in contraception play out already, as more and more men are considering vasectomies in the post Dobbs era. One study found that, in the week after the Dobbs decision, vasectomy Google searches increased sevenfold. Searches for female birth control also increased. And the inquiries translate into action. According to a review of insurance claims data, vasectomies increased by roughly 20% in the 7 months post Dobbs relative to the 7 months prior. This was seen even in states that voted to preserve abortion rights. One study found a 160% increase in vasectomy procedures in Michigan in the 6 months after Dobbs. Perhaps most notably, there is a rising interest in vasectomy rates for men who are usually less likely to seek them, men who are young and or who have no children. Literally me right there. And hey, even for the men out there who do someday want to be fathers, here's the reason that vasectomies are very common, while hysterectomies are extremely unlikely to be done. Vasectomies are reversible, hysterectomies are not. Vasectomies have that 0.15% failure rate. Hysterectomies are guaranteed to both make sure you never have a period or a baby again. Alright, let's wrap up the article. Men are taking Men taking on more responsibility in the birth control world doesn't mean that women can finally take a breather, especially given that the rise in interest is happening as abortion access is dramatically decreasing, making getting accidentally pregnant all the riskier a prospect. While surveys have shown that many women trust their partners to take contraceptives responsibly, at least half of female partners stated that they would want to continue to take their own contraceptive, regardless of what the men were doing. It's unlikely that the responsibility of birth control will ever totally shift from a woman's burden to a man's, but sharing the responsibility, hopefully someday it will be a no-brainer. Yeah, I'm not against sharing the responsibility. Ultimately, though, I think it's up to the individual to decide with their doctor what works best for them. You know, if you want to someday have kids, if you're a man, vasectomy is an option now because in the future it can be reversed. I don't know how easily it can be. Again, talk to your doctor about this, not me. But yeah, I remember high school health class, we would go through, we actually went through the effectiveness rate of pretty much every single, what was it, birth control method. I don't remember all the stats off the top of my head. I only know the vasectomy one because I've been researching that recently. But also, I remember from high school health class that abstinence was literally the only 100% effective method. That is actually one of the reasons I actually was personally abstinent, because I saw all those numbers and I was like, if there's even a small chance, why would I want to take that risk? Today, I think a 0.15% risk is within reason. But yeah, you get the idea. So, I think I'm going to leave it here for the video. You comment down below what you think about sharing the burden, or if it's up to the individual and their doctors to figure it out. Like I said, I think every individual should decide with the help of their doctor on what works best for them based on effectiveness. So basically, how much risk they're willing to take with an unplanned pregnancy. And also how invasive or non invasive they're willing to get. But yeah, give this video a like, subscribe for daily videos. I will see you soon.